Thank you for joining on our webinar today, Harnessing the Full Capabilities of Microsoft 365 Business Premium Part 3. This webinar marks the third installment now of a series of webinars we've been hosting around the capabilities of Microsoft 365 Business Premium. And this time we're focused on Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. Just a little bit about Nviron before we kick off today. For more than 30 years, we've been empowering SMB customers with IT services to increase end-user value and enhance productivity. Based in Cheshire, we specialise in delivering Microsoft solutions to our customers, and we've worked closely with Microsoft for a long time. Previously, we were a Microsoft Gold partner, and since the partnership status changes, we're now a Microsoft Solution partner with status for Modern Workplace and Azure Infrastructure. Today, in the third part of our webinar series, we're going to be focusing on Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. We'll also have a couple of live demos, one on Copilot for productivity and one on how Copilot can enhance efficiency and collaboration. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. Feel free to ask questions in the Q&A section in the chat throughout the webinar. We'll collate these. We've got a dedicated Q&A session at the end. If we can't answer those questions on the spot, we'll answer them after the webinar and then share those answers with everybody. The webinar is also being recorded, so after the webinar you'll receive a recording. And now we've gone through that, let's meet our presenters for today. We've got Ben Staley, our Microsoft Services Specialist, and Oliver Drury, our Technical Cloud Specialist.
Hello everyone.
Hi guys.
So the agenda for today, we will cover how digital debt is costing us innovation, generative AI and the inception of Copilot, how Copilot revolutionises the way we work. Then Ollie will give us a demo on Copilot for productivity. We'll have a short break and then we'll rejoin with Ollie giving us a demo on Copilot for efficiency and collaboration. And then we'll close with the Q&A. I'll now hand over to Ben, who will kick off our webinar today.
Thanks, Mike. Hello, everyone. Yes, we're at a unique moment in time, and made possible in large part by the digitalisation of business. Entire industries are transforming, the macroeconomic environment is shifting, and we're at a technological inflection point. Based on research, 64% of employees don't have enough time or energy to do their job. And the primary cause of this time energy drain are things like searching for information and navigating inefficient meetings. Employees reported spending nearly 60% of their time on communicating and coordinating, leaving just 40% for creation, deep thinking and collaboration. The volume of data, emails and chats has simply outpaced our ability to process it all. And this is what they call digital debt. Every minute spent managing this digital debt is a minute not spent on creative work. In a world where creativity is a new productivity, digital debt is more than an inconvenience. It is really impacting business. Nearly 2 in 3 people say they don't have enough time and energy to do their job. And those same employees are 3.5 times more likely to struggle with innovation and strategic thinking. So how are businesses dealing with digital debt? ChatGPT is an AI-powered language model developed by OpenAI and was introduced into the market in November 22. It's designed to engage in natural language conversations, generate human-like text and respond based on context and past interactions. ChatGPT can be used for a variety of purposes. It can chat with you on various topics, answer questions, and provide detailed responses. It can help you gain insights by summarizing articles, providing pros and cons, or simply breaking down complex information. You can also use ChatGPT to automate tasks, brainstorm ideas, and even debug code. And you might even be inspired to produce a story or even a poem or even a recommendation. ChatGPT can generate creative content. And finally, it can also assist with translations and language-related tasks. In January 23, ChatGPT had become one of the fastest growing consumer software applications, amassing over 100 million users. It has already started to ease the pain of digital debts for businesses and has become an integral part of Microsoft Copilot. Today, Microsoft Copilot is your everyday AI companion that brings chat interfaces and large language models together with information from the internet, so you can ask questions in natural language to help navigate tasks. It uses large language models in an artificial intelligence model trained on a large amount of text data to perform a wide variety of language tasks, including text summarization, generation, and categorization. These models can understand and generate human-like text, making them useful for a wide range of applications. Large language models engage web grounding to utilize information from the web and also improve the understanding and generation of natural language. This involves connecting words, and phrases, and text to real-world knowledge and concepts, which can simply help improve the accuracy and relevance of responses in a conversational AI system. Customers can be assured that their commercial data is protected and will not leak outside the organization. With Microsoft Copilot, chat data is not saved. Microsoft has no eyes on access. Your data is not used to train the large language model. In addition to Microsoft Copilot, Microsoft have also recently introduced Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. This is essentially Microsoft Copilot embedded into your everyday Microsoft 365 apps. Microsoft Copilot and Microsoft 365 combines the power of large language models and web grounding with your content and data within Microsoft Graph, turning your words into a powerful productivity tool. By leveraging Microsoft Graph, it can access a wealth of resources, relationships, and intelligence all through a single endpoint. This is the gateway to data and intelligence in Microsoft 365 apps. Pulling data from your documents, emails, calendar, chats, meetings, contacts, you name it, all with the enterprise-grade data protection and security that you trust from Microsoft. With Microsoft Copilot Studio, Microsoft are further enabling customers with a new low-code solution from customizing Copilot experiences in Microsoft 365 and building your own generative AI tools. It lets customers create powerful AI-powered copilots for a range of requests, from providing simple answers to common questions to resolving issues requiring complex conversations. Copilot for Microsoft 365 will undoubtedly enhance user creativity working alongside Microsoft 365 Business Premium apps, such as Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, etc. And this will continue to counteract the risk of increased digital debt. Using Copilot embedded into Microsoft 365 Business Premium, employees and teams can leverage Copilot to help them complete tasks like summarizing PDFs quickly, drafting emails more efficiently, and to get answers to complex questions more with ease. What we'll do now is we'll take a deep dive into Microsoft Copilot and Microsoft 365, and Ollie will showcase some of those key capabilities and functionality that are available to your users. Ollie, over to you.
Hi guys, I hope you're all doing well today. Welcome to the demo part of this webinar. I'm just going to get started by sharing my screen. Hopefully you guys can all see that in a second. Before I kick off on the demo, I'll just give you a little bit of an introduction. So as Ben and Mike alluded to before, there'll be two parts to this demo. The first part is surrounding productivity, specifically within the Office applications of Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. And the second half of the demo, just after our 10-minute break, will surround efficiency and generally surrounding things like Teams and using Outlook, things like drafting emails, using Copilot to coach, and improve any of the structuring of your sentencing and so on, and general sort of collaboration and communication. So what we're going to do for the first part is, as I mentioned, we're going to do a bit of a tour of some of the commonly used Word applications, such as Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and how you can enhance your productivity using Copilot. So hopefully you guys should all be able to see my screen I've got on the left here. What you should see is a PDF which contains some information for a sort of fictitious demo company we've got set up called ReliCloud Thunderbolt e-bike. Now they sell this bike, and this is a PDF which contains information, product information such as pricing, how fast it is, how long it takes to charge, etc. And we're going to use Copilot to influence certain parts of the document and generate some content. So what I'm going to do first is we're going to take a look at the data. So we've got a comprehensive product specification for the Thunderbolt e-bike. It's a complex document and it's 7 pages long. Copilot can easily generate content in the document like a summarized introductory paragraph. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click just under introduction here, and you guys might see this little icon just to the left, which is draft with Copilot. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to give it a prompt. So I'm going to ask it to summarize this document in a short paragraph. Now, to save you guys the labor of watching me type it in, I'm just going to take the prompt that I've pre-prepared, and I'm going to click generate. And what Copilot is going to do in this instance is it's going to take a look at the document. It's going to scan for any sort of pertinent information. As we mentioned before, it could be about pricing, it could be about the size of wheels, it could be about anything in there which is determined to be influential or info that needs to be met by the user. And it's going to generate it into a small introduction that summarizes any of that content. We'll just give it another second here. So when you're doing any of these works in sort of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, depending on the size of the task, you can expect Copilot to take usually anywhere between 10 seconds up to a couple of minutes. It doesn't take too long, but for some larger documents, it can take a while. So what we can see here is it's actually provided us with an introduction that we can put right into the document here that summarized any of the information. And also it's important to note, you've got these little thumb up and thumb down. You can actually provide it with positive information that encourages the language model. It says, if it's done the right task and it's produced it correctly, it's good to give it positive feedback. If not, you can give it negative feedback and suggest as to how it can improve and further learn about the environment that it's operating within. So we're going to keep that. I'm happy with the introduction that it's produced. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate up to the top right hand corner. Hopefully you guys can see this little icon I'm just gesturing over. That's the Copilot ribbon. Now you'll find one of these in each of the Office applications. It's a little bit different for Teams and Outlook, but for PowerPoint, Excel and Word, you will have a custom ribbon that pops out in the right hand corner, and this can provide you with any of your Copilot content for this specific application. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, how long does it take to charge the Thunderbolt? Okay, remember some correct grammar. Just going to put that question in. It'll scan through the document, it'll look for the word charge, Thunderbolt, and as you can imagine, it'll extract that data and it'll put it out here. So not only is it good for actually, drafting and creating content, it's good for deciphering content. In this document here, it's 7 pages long, but you could imagine having a 50, 100 page long contract, and you're trying to find specific phrases, Control F just isn't quite doing the job. Copilot can do an excellent job of extracting information and finding those key points and bringing that information right to your fingertips. Okay, so we'll just let it generate for a little bit longer, and hopefully it will find us that piece of information in the document. And once it's stopped generating, I'm going to show you another feature after that, which will be about drafting new documents, but based off referencing an existing document, which is quite a useful feature. Oh, that's not very positive. Well, to be honest, in this instance here, guys, we've tried this demo a few times before. It almost always comes through with the answer. It is 30 minutes. Unfortunately, it's not pulled it through there. There might have just been a little bit of an error of some sort. But what I'll do is I'll show you a slightly more exciting feature, which we can do, which is if I go to File and New to blank document, We can see we have the Copilot signature just here on the left. It's available for us to use. And I'm going to create a document based off the context of another. So we'll create a user guide that customers will be sent with their new product purchase. And in this instance, I would like it to reference the Thunderbolt file we've just been looking at. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to click on draft. I'm going to say reference a file. And this instance, I'm going to ask for it to reference the Thunderbolt specifications document, which we can see here. And I'm going to take a prompt. I'm just going to steal it here and pop it in. You guys don't want to watch me typing for about 30 seconds. Okay. So what I want it to do is to create a user guide for customers that will be included with their purchase of the Thunderbolt e-bike. I want it to reference the document we've just mentioned and focus on the product overview section and the design and interface sections as their own, complete sections with summarized info. I also want it to include maintenance and support that the customers can use to care for their new e-bike. So I'm going to click generate on that. So it's got that document in reference. Similar to some of the other situations here, it will reference the specific document. The language model will process any of the content within the Word document. And using the command we've given it, you can now see it in live, in real time, writing out a new introduction. It's also going to write out some of the other product features and any of the information that a user might need to essentially have a product guide for their new bike. So it's quite interesting. You can actually see it generating the content in live. It doesn't just do it all once and then jump it out. And if at any point, you think that it's taken it in contextually and it's not doing a good job, you can say stop generating, and you can tweak some of the prompts there as well. So, I mean, realistically, guys, it doesn't matter how quickly your mind works and how fast you type. It's unlikely that you will have been able to have produced almost 600 words in the space of about 2 minutes. And if you have a read through the content, do feel free to have a little read of what's on the screen right now, guys, as it's generating it. It's, taking those salient points and it's conveying them in a cohesive and clear way. It's not just, nonsense that's been sort of regurgitated. It also is capable of doing tables, and I should note that it can actually generate images as well if need be. So in the process, it'll either ground itself to the web and take images that it thinks are relevant from the internet, or it can take images and it can actually process its own sort of AI images made by the DALL-E engine, and it can put them into your document. Okay, so it seems almost to be done now. Just writing off the last page there. But as you can see, guys, it's an enormous increase in speed for writing certain potentially repetitive documents or documents where you've already got a very set outcome you're looking for. Okay, so and also notice Copilot includes only the relevant information I've asked for and the sections that were denoted in our prompt. It also summarizes the complex product specifications for the user guide. So I'm going to let that continue writing, and perhaps we can come back to that in a little bit, guys. But obviously, don't need to necessarily see the rest of that. We are on a time schedule here, of course, and there are 2 other products that I would like to cover. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say stop generating for now. I'm satisfied with the content it's provided so far. And as a note, you could obviously take further things. You might say, I don't like the way that's presented. It seems too informal. You could say, as it says here, make it more formal. Add more pictures. You can tweak, continuously to help build, a clearer image of exactly what you want. So I'm going to click back on that. I'm going to close that. I'm not going to save it. I'm not going to save the changes to that document either. And hopefully, what you guys can see in front of you now is an Excel sheet. I'm going to touch on Excel very briefly. I'm just going to show you a couple of the features that are available within there. So Microsoft Copilot for Excel can help users analyze and filter data faster to get immediate insights. In this example, we've got some product and sales data on an Excel sheet titled Sales Performance. We can use Copilot to convert a raw data set to a table in a snap. I'm just going to have a sip of water briefly. And we're ready to get on with the next part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the data that is in question. Anything in this Excel document here. Now, it's important to note that at the moment, Copilot Excel operates exclusively within tables. So that's something that you'll need to do. Similar to last time, top right hand corner, Copilot. I'm going to open up this ribbon here, and it's going to provide us with any of the sort of contextual Copilot information and tools we need within Excel. You can see it's already prompted me. It's detected that there's some data, and I'm going to click on this little button down here to convert. And what it's done instantaneously is it's converted this data into a table. Now, for anyone who's familiar with using Excel, it's not the most phenomenally difficult task, but this is just the beginning of the demonstration here. So what I'd like to do is add a column for the profit margin. Simple instruction for Copilot is all it takes to automatically generate a formula and insert a new column. And what's great about this is that it automatically analyzes your data to come up with a formula, but also explains how it is calculated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the rail here, and I'm going to ask it a question. I'm going to say add a column or profit margin. Okay, so it's going to start working on that now. And hopefully what it'll do is it will produce us an additional column on the right hand side of the table that will give us information on the profit margins, apologies, of any of the bikes here. Now, it's not too complex of a formula, but it is certainly something that would have taken you a few minutes yourself to generate the formula for, put into the tables and format and do any of the other work there. So, you could go make yourself a cup of tea whilst, Copilot is generating this formula for you. And the useful thing as well is that once it has generated this formula, we'll be able to have a look and we'll be able to see what the formula is as well. It won't just put it in place and say, there you go. It'll explain how it's actually come to that conclusion, which is a very useful feature. Okay, I'll just give it a minute. Just going to set it to process that task again, because occasionally, you can get a little bit of feedback like that. Bear with me a second. Put that command in again, and hopefully we'll have a little bit more luck this time. Standing data. Okay, a bit more promising. It's gone a bit quicker this time. Okay, that's a little bit disappointing, guys. I apologize. So it should be producing a profit margin piece of information, but you know what might be useful is over the 10-minute break halfway through this presentation, I'll have a little check in Excel and I'll just see if something's gone wrong. And what I'll do is we'll just do the PowerPoint presentation now. I'll show you some features there, and I'll touch back in Excel and I'll just show you what I wanted to show you a second ago there. So apologies for the delay with that. So what we'll do now is we'll just have a quick look in PowerPoint. And I'll show you some of the features within here and what you can do when using PowerPoint with Copilot. So this demo will cover how Copilot for 365 can enhance your experience in PowerPoint, including the creation of a presentation based on the context of a Word doc. It will also cover how to edit the PowerPoint presentation using Copilot. So here I am. You guys should be able to see a company's branded PowerPoint slide template. And what I'm going to do is going to jump over to the layout. And I'm just going to quickly show you guys that we have a multitude of branded slides that are available here. So these are slides that have been produced by the company with a certain branding scheme. If you're using Copilot and PowerPoint, you don't have to have branding readily available, but it is able to make use of pre-existing branding and templates that you guys have produced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the Copilot ribbon, just like we've seen in some of the other Copilots. I'm going to go back down here and I'm going to generate a PowerPoint based on a file. So we see a few options here. You can just create a regular presentation, or you could generate one based on context. So I'm going to click on create presentation from file. And seeing as it's quite a large URL, I'm going to just extract it from where I've got it saved. Copy that. Now, what you should note is that you can actually reference files that are local on your machine, or you could reference files which are currently stored in SharePoint, OneDrive, or another online repository of some sort. Whilst that's working, I'm just going to click on Excel and just see if I can get it to produce that command again in the background whilst we're waiting for our PowerPoint presentation. Take that in and hopefully do that in the background. Anyway, okay. So at the moment, it's finding the file. It's referencing any of the content that is available there. And it's drafting a presentation. Brilliant. So you can already see there are multiple slides it's generating, starting off with introduction, product overview, technical specifications. It's taking those pertinent points out of the Thunderbot document, and it is directly converting them into a PowerPoint document. Now, I'm not sure how often everyone here is making PowerPoint documents. It might be for more specific roles, but this is really actually one of my favorite features of Copilot. It's just really useful to be able to see it, producing both a visual and written piece of work all together and amalgamating any of the images and the other content it needs to search for to produce a high quality PowerPoint document. So if we just give it one more second, it should finish off generating the rest of the slides. So what it's doing really is it's analyzing the entire document, which has numerous steps, and it'll create sections of the deck based on the sections of the paper. And it's even summarizing the tables of info and specifications to include in the PowerPoint. Now, if the document doesn't contain images, as I mentioned, Copilot can choose from stock images, or it can create its own, which you can easily switch off later if it's not something that you desire. So it's just adding some speaker notes as well, which is also very useful. There we go, brilliant. So I'll just keep the Copilot tab open for now. Hopefully you guys can see on my screen the changes that have taken effect. We have a PowerPoint document, starts at slide 1 and goes all the way down to 21 slides with a glossary included. Now, what we can see as well, as you can notice, the deck has been created in the same format as the slide templates. Copilot has even summarized the content from the document and populated speaker notes as well, which you can see at the bottom. And they have a very consistent look and feel to all the slides that are available here as well. And if we just scroll down to one of the icon selection pages, down to here, we can take a look at this slide and we can see that Copilot has intelligently determined which icons to use representing the message it's aligned to. So it can see exclamation mark for safety, a certification for certifications, and obviously, a gavel and a hammer in relation to regulatory and compliance standards. I'm just going to scroll a little bit further down through the PowerPoint as well now. And we can see it's added various bullet points and other pieces of content here as well. So what it's done essentially is intelligently analysed the entire slide deck and its producers with a personalised PowerPoint in the space that would usually take, at least an hour or two of manual labour if you were doing it yourself. So a few important things to note here as well is if you are unsatisfied with the presentation itself, you don't have to leave it just there. Copilot is always capable of taking a little bit of extra information. So I'd like the presentation to be just a little bit longer, a couple of extra slides. At the moment, I've judged that that's only going to cover us for 40 minutes. And it's an hour we've got planned for this meeting. So I'd like it to generate a couple of extra slides. What it'll do, it'll go back to the document, it'll pull for information, and we can see now instead of 21, we have a couple of extra slides that have just been added into this section here as well. Stuff to do with documentation and training. And of course, it's not just based on things like length and complexity. You can ask for it to change the entire tone of the presentation. You can make it more informal or more formal, and you can amend a whole multitude of other areas like that. So I'm just going to close this down. Have a quick glance back over at Excel, and I say a little disappointingly, it's not produced that result yet. But what I'm going to do is in the second half of this presentation, hopefully I've had a little tweak in the back end and just seen if there's anything wrong there, and I'll be able to give you the rest of the Excel demonstration. So for now, guys, what we'll do is if we swap back to Mike and Ben, have a little 10-minute break or so roughly, I'll get Excel playing in the background, and in the second half, we'll get to have a look at Teams and Outlook and any of the sort of productivity and efficiency areas, which you guys will hopefully find very interesting. So back to you guys.
Hi everybody, we're going to kick off just a little bit earlier than planned, just conscious of everybody's time. So we will continue with the webinar. We're going into our second demo, Copilot for efficiency and collaboration. And I'll hand over to you, Ollie.
Hi guys, thank you all for waiting during that brief intermission. So I've done a bit of wrangling, namely closing and reopening Excel, and we've got Copilot functioning again. So what I'm going to do is just share my screen so that you guys can all see the content I'm talking about. You should be able to see the Excel document we were just in a second ago. And all I've done is just resubmitted the command, and Copilot has provided a suggestion. So it's provided a suggestion that calculates the profit margin for each product by subtracting the production cost from the current price and dividing the results by the current price. This provides insight into the profitability of each product in the table. So as we recall before, guys, we were looking just to get some information on the profit margins and have it add a column on the side. You can expand on explain formula and you can get some further content explaining exactly why it is and how this functions, some of the maths behind it essentially. Now what I'm going to do, conscious of time, is I'm going to insert that column and get it going. So now, you know, in the blink of an eye, once you've actually got the command through, you've got yourself a profit margin table, which can be displayed at the end of your information. So what I want to do now is go a little bit further. To apply conditional formatting to make the data stand out, a task which used to be complex, simply ask Copilot to mark all the items with a negative profit margin. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to say mark all items with a negative profit margin with an icon. Okay, what you should be able to do is you should take that information, understand it, and it should apply some conditional formatting to the data on the end of the table. Finishing up, it's a good sign. Okay, let's make sure we've got the right data selected. Okay, I'm just going to reinitiate that command just to make sure it's got it right. And once it's done that, what I want to do is I also want to get some insights. It's another feature which is actually really quite useful in Excel, which is a little bit different to some of the content that we've looked at already. Brilliant. There we go. So as you guys can see, we've now got positive and negative arrows, which is conditional formatting, which has been applied to the data in question here. So what I want to do now is I want to select the table and I want to do something slightly different. I'm not going to be adding just numbers or conditionally formatting with images. I'd like to get some insights on the data in here, stuff which might not be immediately clear or apparent to us. What I'm going to do is say, show me insights, and I'll let that work on that. What it should do is after a bit of analyzing, it'll produce a quick chart. Now you can dig further into specific insights, or you can add all insights on the grid. So as you can see, guys, you get another option here to add a new sheet. This is quite impressive, I think. You can add new sheet. That will appear just to the side in a second once it's inserted the content. It'll actually produce graphs, models, data in relation to the existing content that you've got in your document. And it'll decide what appears to be, pertinent information that's useful for you to use. And it can actually take that data and display it to you in graphs, as we can see just here on the side. So immediately I can see it's produced me a graph in relation to the sales of certain bikes. We can see that road bikes obviously costing the most at the moment to sell. And you can even play around with some of these pivot chart fields as well. So you could actually look in and you could enter the IDs in as well. You can tweak any of the little bits of information in here to your liking. Now, there are a few other things you can do. You can deep dive further into the field list and so on. I'd love to be able to go a bit further into it and perhaps, one-to-one in the future. If you guys ever want a further look into Excel, we can go into that, but I am conscious of time. So what I would like to do, just after you've seen that insights thing there, is to just jump into part 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that. And hopefully what we should have, is an example email here. Now, the reason I have an email up is because part 2 will be surrounding Outlook, Teams, and Copilot chat. And what I want to do is give a bit of an example of efficiency and communication and collaboration and how these can be enhanced using Copilot. So the first thing we've got on the list is a Outlook demo. So what I'm going to do now is just make sure I've got the right content available. Hopefully you guys should see an email, which is from Ben, just on the left-hand side here. And this demo is going to cover how Copilot includes email summary, email drafting and generation, and even coaching email, which is quite a useful feature. So Copilot reduces the amount of time you spend combing through a crowded inbox. We can summarize a long email or a thread with Copilot. And now in this instance, guys, you'll see on the top bar here, we can see summary by Copilot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this. It's going to scan the email content. It's going to look at who it's from, who it's been forwarded between, what the context is. Is it technical? Is it something in relation to sales? It'll take all of this information, usually in a relatively prompt manner. It will bring it together in a sort of consolidated explanation, essentially a brief summary as to what's in the email chain. Now, this email chain here is actually only a few emails long. It's nothing too large, but what is quite useful is especially if you have much larger email chains, and you've got 10, 20 people emailing in a chain, it starts to get to an unmanageable length. It's really useful to be able to condense all that information. Now, one thing you should know is obviously it is AI generated content. So it was always wise to make sure you check through the work that has been done until you become at least a bit more comfortable, understand how Copilot functions within Outlook. Okay, it's taking a little longer. I'm just going to, well, perhaps as that's generating, I'll just show you in a second. I'll do a little bit of stuff with regards to generating email drafts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draft an email. I'm going to go through to Outlook, pull up a new tab, bring the mail through, and I'll pop on that screen so you guys can see it as well. Okay. Oh, well, actually, just before I do that, I'll just show you as it's just come through now. Took a little longer there, but usually it's in the region of 10 to 20 seconds. So we can see this summary. It's saying myself, I've been sending an email to Mike about the benefits of Intune that I found and mentioned to Ben that might be interesting to him. The email lists several key features and benefits of Intune, including the ability to manage users, devices, app management, policy deployment, self-service, etc., etc. It also explains that Ben replied to Mike, gives a bit of context, and it tells you a little bit about who Ben Staley is as well in this instance. Now, as I mentioned, on a smaller email chain like this, it's useful for a quick summary, but on large email chains, is invaluable. I'm sure we've all had situations where we've sat down, looked at an enormous email chain, and half debated whether it was worth reading the entire thing or perhaps asking someone for a summary. Well, now you don't need to ask someone. You can have Copilot do it for you. Just going to bring up this second draft over here. And what we're going to do now is show you how to create content. So I'm going to bring it up there. And so it saves you time by generating email drafts for you. You can begin by creating a new email or replying to an existing message. Copilot quickly generates a draft reply. So from a reply to a new message, all you need to do is click Draft with Copilot and enter a prompt with the main points you'd like to communicate. So I'm going to Draft with Copilot. And in a similar context when we're in Word, I'm going to provide it with a little bit of initial context for it to work from. You can select the tone and length as well, and I'll show you that in a second. I'm just going to take a existing prompt that I've pre-prepared, and I'm going to put it into here. Now, it's very brief, doesn't really convey that much. That messaging should work well. Include the customer list with no personal identification information, as we want to be compliant. I can deliver this in 2 weeks. It conveys the points. Copilot knows what you want to talk about, but the email itself is somewhat unstructured, not very professional, and not something that would be sent, to a customer or perhaps even a colleague. Now, note just down here on the left, generate options. You can have fine manual control over essentially the personality of how the email is conveyed. Now, Copilot will read your previous emails and attempt to contextualize them based on how you speak yourself, but you can actually, if you wanted to alter it manually, you can make some tweaks here. Now, for the purpose of this demo, I like direct. I think that's probably the best approach. Medium is a good length. So I'm going to click generate on that and let that get working. So as you can see, guys, as it usually does, it produces things pretty instantly. Now I won't read the whole email out to you here, but do feel free to have a read as I'm going through this presentation point. It provides a much larger, more structured email. It gives you all those sort of filler words and extra bits that allow you to take the important points you have, put them down, and then allow Copilot to add the flesh to the bones, essentially in this context. If you're unsatisfied with it, you can obviously tweak. You can even give it specific prompts saying, actually, I'd like you to include more information about the dates, or I don't think you mentioned this. Giving it further context always enables it to give you a more satisfying or complete answer. So now there's another little useful feature here which you guys might find useful, and it can help you with coaching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that email out. Give me a second. I'll just produce another draft email in which we can do some coaching points. I'm going to put that on the left. I'm going to get that ready again. What we're going to do now is up in the top right hand corner, you see the Copilot icon. There's another feature here. There's coaching by Copilot. And what this can do is it can take any of the email which you've written already, one that might be intended to actually be released, and it can provide you with insights as to how you're communicating, the language you're using, whether it's potentially offensive or abrupt or too passive or submissive or whatever, other characteristic might be applied to it. So what I want to do is I'm going to take this rather unpleasant email and I'm going to stick it into here like that. And it's short and unpleasant, and what I want to do is I want to amend it with coaching. So get me the final draft of the new report by end of day tomorrow. The last draft had several mistakes that need to be corrected before we send the newest draft. You should attempt to catch these items like that before they happen. Now, you guys, I'm sure you're probably all aware of a time where you've written an email in a certain tone and then perhaps thought maybe that's not the way I want to send that. Well, now you can do it automatically. So we can click on there and we can click on coaching by Copilot. It will analyze the email. I'll have a read of things, and it's in a second going to provide us with some insights as to what it thinks the nature of the message is and potential ways in which we can improve it. So I'll just let that work for a second. And in a second, what it should do is it should provide us with a little bit of context. Brilliant. There we go. So there are three sections it looks at here. Tone. It can tell that you could be more courteous, perhaps. Sounds a bit harsh and demanding. It gives you a suggestion as well, so something you could replace it with, perhaps slightly, kinder, but still, assertive and direct language. If we move on to the next section there, you can see there's a reader sentiment point. So, how can you be a little bit more, what's the word, dynamic, in the situation here? How can you not just criticize, but also, constructively work with a colleague? It gives you another suggestion as well. And at the very end, there's also a point on clarity too as well. So it says, it seems that there are some details that are lacking for this email here. Some other points that could be added in that could, enhance the response or the email that you're sending to your colleague. So gives you coaching information. You can take that into your own hands and you can do with that, as you will, guys. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to close Outlook and I'm going to show you another component of today's second part demo. Now, just to give you some context before I directly operate within our Teams meeting, I'm going to give you some information on Copilot for the web and the premium version of Copilot, Copilot 365, which we're discussing here today. So hopefully, I'll just bring this up. What you can see in front of you here is the general free release version of Copilot. Now, this isn't the Copilot we've been discussing today, but it does provide some useful context. This is a tool that everyone here can access just by going to copilotmicrosoft.com. This is generally speaking, I would say, oriented to individual users. It could be used for some business requirements, but it is critical that you guys remember that the version of Copilot you can see in front of you, which is Copilot for the web, the non-365 version, is a free tool. And it does not come with, the data protection guarantees that you might expect or require from the Copilot I've just been showing you. It's really useful in some ways. You can say, what's the weather, or perhaps you could ask it more demanding questions than that. You can ask it to compile things, points on Henry VIII or various other, historical topics and things like that. Works in a similar way to what you'd expect from ChatGPT. Really useful little tool, but at the same time, I would heed a strong word of warning not to use this tool for generally speaking, sort of commercial, internal business affairs, as it does not have the data protection requirements that you would expect. You could put content into here, and it could be used for, future content for generating other answers for other people. So I'm just going to minimize that after asking it, admittedly, not a particularly exciting question. And what I'm going to show you here is Copilot for 365. Now, this is the Copilot that we've just been discussing. It is the Copilot with the license that Ben has just mentioned, or will be mentioning in a bit. This Copilot is data protected. It has strong data protection requirements and regulations surrounding it. If you operate within this Copilot here and you put in sensitive corporate information, Microsoft do not access this. It's retained within your corporate environment, and it is certainly not broadcast out onto the public web and used by other people. Now, a little feature you can ask, for example, is you could say, when is my next meeting? It's essentially within Teams able to operate as an AI assistant of sorts. It can look through your calendar. It can look through your OneDrive files, anything you've got access to within your account. Your Copilot is an assistant. It works on the same permission levels that the user it is assigned to. So I can actually see it's got some other information there surrounding a meeting that I've got coming up. So I'm going to ask for a new chat. And a little feature that I think you guys should be aware of here is down in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a plugin option. And just to briefly touch on this, there's the ability to ground or not ground with web content. Now, as you might be aware here, if I take off the web content feature, if I were to ask it a question about, weather or traffic or various other, useful pieces of information, it won't find it, because what it's doing right now is it's exclusively searching through our corporate environment. So it's using the rest of 365. It's accessing our SharePoints, OneDrive, Teams, any of those other sort of Microsoft components. It's taking that data and it's providing me with contextual information. Now, what I like to do is I like to have web content enabled and grounded. And I should add, this does not mean that if you put information into here, it will be broadcast to the web. It just means that Copilot can take information from outside of your business and amalgamate it with certain aspects of the internal data you've got to give you sort of contextual answers. So you might ask about, when is my meeting at a certain point, and if there's traffic and so on, and other features like that. So what I'll do is I'm just going to minimize that now. It was only briefly there just to give an example in relation to the chat features. And what I'm going to do now very briefly is I'm going to open up the main meeting. I'm going to put that there. I'm going to break the fourth wall very briefly, so I apologize if anyone can see a never-ending repetition of themselves or anything like that. And hopefully what you guys can see on my screen right now is the little Copilot sidebar here in Teams. Now, Copilot can actually be used contextually within Teams to provide information and answers. So what I'm going to do, if you just bear with me. Open up the chat, ask it a question, and I'm going to prepare. There's a few questions that I've got that I would like to ask Copilot in this instance here. Okay, so transcription and recording is required for this to function. And what it does is it takes any of the context of the items that I've asked, and it can provide us with contextual questions and answers based on the Teams call. So what I want to do first is I would like to ask it a question. So I'll say, Copilot, oh, that's the meeting chat. Don't want to be typing that in there, not going to get any results. Can you summarize what it'll do is it'll look at the meeting so far. It'll take the transcription and recording we have. And from that, it will take all the information. It'll see who's spoken, when it is, what the priorities are. And as you guys can see here, immediately, It has provided us with information on the main topic, which is harnessing the full capabilities of Microsoft 365 Business Premium. It's given us an explanation with regards to the work that Ben has produced here. It's also explained about some of the content I provided, and it's even picked up on the fact that there was a short break and showed how Copilot could improve efficiency after the break. So it's really useful for getting just immediate context on any of your sort of web and information that comes through Teams. So there are a few other questions I'd like to ask it just to dig a little bit further in. So what I could say is were there any mentions of my name, I think. So were there any mentions of name or action items? Apologies for the slow typing. There we go. So I've just initiated that question. Were there any mentions of my name or action items for me? Okay, so it's going to generate as a response. It's going to look through that transcript. It's going to see when points were mentioned for myself. Here we can see there were 2 mentions of your name in the meeting transcript. Ben Staley mentioned me as a Microsoft Services Specialist, gave an overview of features of Copilot, and Mike, whose name is picked up ever so slightly incorrectly, has actually picked up on some further information there as well. So it's really useful for contextually grasping things. Say you've joined a meeting late, and it should be noted that this report is actually available after the meeting. So, if a meeting has occurred and Copilot has been there with the transcript enabled, it can record the whole meeting and it can provide information afterwards if you didn't manage to join the meeting. So another thing, which I think is interesting, now no one take any hints here, as I don't want any questions that are too difficult, but I can actually ask it this question. What are some challenging questions I can ask the presenter? So essentially, it will take a look. It will identify myself as one of the presenters, at least, because it can take that contextual information of me being, one of the sort of hosts and organisers of the meeting. It can take the info. It can establish the topic, and it's actually just generated as a list here of various pieces of information. So, how does Copilot handle sensitive or confidential data in Microsoft 365 apps? What are the limitations and challenges of using a large language model? And so on and so on. So we can actually take any of the information we've discussed and it produce, not just simple, but actually sort of quite important and deep questions in relation to the subject matter. So there are a few other things you can do here as well. You can ask it to say, list everyone who's at the meeting, provide me with tables and so on. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a second. There we go. And so it can provide all of this information, right from the get-go within your Teams meeting. It's all at your fingertips if you've got those questions that you want to ask. So what I want to do just very briefly at the end was just close off and say that the feature we've been seeing today is Copilot for 365. There are other Copilots that are going to be available. There's Copilot for security and Azure. Security Copilot will operate more in areas like Entra, Intune, and Defender. We actually have a series of in-person presentations that are coming up soon. So if you guys want to speak to your respective account managers, Craig, one of our technical consultants, will be providing an in-person presentation and a demo of some of these features. So that's something you guys might find useful for the future. But essentially what I wanted to end on here as well, in relation to the sort of security context, which is something that will be discussed at these coming presentations, is that Copilot is a powerful tool. And it should be used with, the appropriate data protections. When you assign Copilot to a user, it will essentially give it the same role-based access control as that user itself. Now, most users won't bother to go through the entire file structure of the business and find any potential vulnerabilities here or there, but if they have Copilot enabled and someone has given them access to, an incorrect area, Copilot in the blink of an eye will scan every single file that user has access to. So if you've accidentally given them access to, the CEO's calendar, it will be aware of that in a second, in a way in which that user wouldn't. So not something to be fearful of, but it should be a point to say that it's best to have, a good, thorough role-based access control system that's in place and being updated, so you can have those data protections that should be there already, but could be exacerbated by the introduction of AI into your business. So that's pretty much everything from me, guys. It was just a brief one there on the end of the team's context, because only a certain level of questions that I'm able to ask for confidentiality reasons and so on. But other than that, I think I should hand back to you guys. Thanks for that, guys.
Thank you, Ollie. We will now pass over to Ben for the final part of our webinar today before we jump into the Q&A.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, thanks, Ollie, for that insightful demo. I think you'll all agree that utilising Copilot embedded within Microsoft 365 applications is going to be a technological game changer for SMBs, specifically around digital debt and what we've talked about at the beginning. However, and as Ollie's already kind of alluded to slightly, we can't stress enough the importance of customer readiness when adopting Copilot for Microsoft 365, both from a technical readiness and also a user enablement perspective. So, when you as customers are ready to adopt Copilot, whether it be in a initial department or big bang, as customers, you need to be thinking about data security, data governance, data access, and also whether you meet the prerequisites that Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365 demands. These areas do need to be assessed and addressed prior to the actual rollout. From a user enablement perspective, prompt engineering is key really to the overall success of Copilot, and users need to understand the mechanisms behind effective prompt writing to achieve best value and a return on your business's investment in Copilot. As a Microsoft partner, Nviron are here to help. We're here to help support customers along their Copilot journey with expert-led services. Our subject matter experts are, as Ollie's already alluded to, are running in-person events across the Northwest and West Midlands during the next few months, where we'll focus on these specific areas. And we certainly encourage you to join. If your account manager hasn't reached out to you yet, or you would like to make arrangements to attend, for sure, please leave a message in the chat, or if you have our email, please send us an email, and we'll certainly add you to the list. I think there's one in a couple of weeks and one sort of the following month, Mike, and I think it's every month, literally, isn't it, for the next 3 months. So those are great sessions for you to really engage with our experts in terms of security and governance. That really concludes the Copilot session today. Again, thanks Ollie for the demonstration. What I'll do now is I'll hand over to Mike and address perhaps any questions we might have, or we'll certainly wrap things up from our perspective. Do we have any sort of question? I think what's probably important, I think, from my perspective, is to kind of share maybe some sort of frequently asked questions that we do get when we're talking to our customers. Probably the most common one is, who's eligible to purchase Copilot. As you imagine, Microsoft is ever changing. They don't keep it simple for partners. So as it stands, you will need to have a business standard, business premium subscription, or an E3 and E5, whether that be the Microsoft 365 version or the Office 365 version. Education wise, yes, it's available, of course, as well. And again, they're the same SKUs. So you do have to have those licenses purchased and provisioned through a partner. However, what we are finding, what we have heard from Microsoft coming soon, is that Business Basic, the F1 and F3, and also the apps for enterprise and business will be a prerequisite SKU. So they are making it fully available, I guess, to most users. In fact, we're going to see Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Teams Essentials, standalone subscriptions also become a prerequisite, a qualifying eligible license for Copilot. So you can see how things are emerging, how things are changing ever so frequently. We often get asked about trials, and how can we purchase Copilot? Well, unfortunately, there's no trials, and there is a requirement that Microsoft demands that it has to be an annual commit. So if anyone's familiar with NCE, you do have to buy it up front annually. There are no sort of offers for purchasing it monthly as we speak. Is there anything else in there, Mike?
Have we got any other questions that anyone wants to raise today? We'll just give it a couple of minutes for you to add those questions if you've got them. If you haven't got any questions to ask today, then feel free to email us after or call us after the webinar is completed, and we'll answer those questions there. Just give it a couple of minutes for any questions to come in, and then I think we'll close the webinar off.
And another good question, Mike, as well, we have to get asked is, we're obviously dealing with lots of customers who perhaps use another partner or go via Microsoft. So they've acquired a business premium license from Microsoft directly. Question is, can I then purchase Copilot through Nviron? The answer is yes. As long as they have the business premium and provisioning that license, yes, they can. Yeah, that's it. That's all from me.
I think that's all from us. So we'll look to complete the webinar there and close it off. If you enjoyed the webinar today, then please do scan the QR code and give us some feedback on that. We'd really appreciate it. And if you do have any further questions, then feel free to reach out and ask your account managers about upcoming events, and we can get you signed up to those. Thank you very much, everybody.